right, we're live.
I think we got a couple minutes in, don't we? Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
Okay. Now, Dave started, will I just start and have somebody?
I think you need to start to
Okay.
allow both of them to
Yeah.
participate after when we get to.
So we'll do the roll call first, and then we'll do the motion to allow them to participate. Because we have to make sure.
Well, we'll need a motion to appoint me chairman, though.
Need to appoint
Yeah.
chair first,
Yeah,
and then do the roll call.
Yeah.
yeah. You got 6 o'clock, Paul?
5:59 by Verizon time.
Six o'clock, man.
This signature time is 6 o'clock. I'd like to start this village board meeting. Do need a motion to appoint a chairman as President Kimsey is gone this evening. Is there a motion on the floor for a chairman?
I'll motion for Matt to chair. Matt Mao.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, thank you. And I'd also would need a motion to allow for,
We'll do that after roll call.
okay. Will you please take the roll, Mr. Secretary?
Do the moment of silence.
Oh, you want to do that first? Okay. Moment of silence, please. And the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we take the roll call.
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Charo.
Present.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Trustee Scherzo.
Present.
Now a motion to allow them to.
Motion to allow President Kimsey and Trustee Gerger to join our meeting electronically.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And just for the record, both are gone due to work purposes, business purposes.
We need a roll call on that.
Yes.
And will you please take the roll?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherzo.
Yes.
Seeing that there are no public announcements, is there any public comments on agenda topics? Either one? Okay, announcement, Les?
Just wanted to remind everybody, November 11th, Veterans Day. Do we have permission for us to use the square for our ceremony? Do we have to get special permission, or just let you know that that's what's going to be at the Veterans Memorial on November 11th at 11 a.m.?
Hey,
Gonna be in Florida,
uh,
sadly. I
is there a motion to put,
apologize. I know.
is there a motion to put the consent agenda on the table?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Hey, any discussion or questions on the minutes or the warrants?
There was.
Did you have one, Paul?
Who seconded it?
Sorry, there was something at the beginning here.
You want to see the minutes?
Never mind. I think it's been fixed.
Would you please take the roll, Mr. Secretary?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Brett?
Yes. Is that a yes?
I think it sounded like a yes.
Talk into your microphone.
Was
Are
that
you
a yes?
approving the consent agenda?
Gerger.
Was that a yes?
I can't hear you guys very well.
We're doing the consent,
Consent agenda on the warrant.
On the consent agenda.
Anybody?
Yes.
we're on the consent agenda for a vote. Trustee Gerger,
Yes.
Trustee Charo,
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao,
Yes.
Trustee Sherjo.
Yes.
Okay, seeing no old business, move into new business with the audit reports. And Sherry.
Thanks again for the opportunity to work with the village again this year. As she mentioned, Brent Lake is our senior manager, and so he was in charge of the day-to-day field work. He's with me as well. But just like to thank Sherry and the staff for helping us during the audit process, making a smooth process. It's always a smooth process with the village, so we appreciate that. So I got a couple of items that I'll go through real quick, a couple of reports. The first item is the large document. It's the comprehensive annual financial report. And this is a comprehensive annual financial report, which is over and above the basic requirements of the basic financial statements. You submit your report to the Government Finance Officers Association, which that started, I believe, 2 years ago. Yeah, and so it includes introductory information and statistical information, which is over and above the basic requirements for the financial statements. The introductory information includes an introductory letter with some information about the local economy and major initiatives, things of that nature. And then the statistical information in the back of the document has trend information, so 10 years worth of trend information for revenue, debt, demographic information, things of that nature. So a lot of good information in both the introductory and the statistical. I'll focus just real quick on the basic financial statements, though. Page 1 and 2, which is right after the introductory section, is the independent auditor's report. This is what we call an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. So all the financial statements as they're presented, we believe are fairly presented based on our audit procedures. Right after that is the management's discussion and analysis. This is written by management, by Sherry, and it includes a lot of the financial highlights, some condensed financial information, reasons why things increased or decreased, if your position improved or deteriorated, and reasons for those things. So it's a good condensed version summary of the financial statements. Just a couple of things that I'll point out. So this year, in the financial statements, pages 4 and 5 is a statement of net position. This year, we implemented GASB statement number 75, and we've been talking about this for a few years now. But essentially, you have an other post-employment benefit obligation, which is now reported in your financial statements. The unfunded liability is reported in the financial statements. So there was a prior period adjustment, a restatement of the beginning of the year net assets for that adjustment, and the total adjustment for the liability was approximately like $4.4 million. So that's included in your liabilities now on your financial statements, which it was not included before. So the statement of net position, the net position includes your assets less your liabilities. This is the government-wide financial statement, so it includes all your capital assets, net of accumulated depreciation. It includes all your debt and all the your pension liabilities, your OPEB liabilities now, and compensated absences, all of those types of debt. So the assets less the liabilities is your net position, which is at the bottom of page 5 there. And you can see that's broken out into some, a couple of different categories. the top line there, the net investment in capital assets, that's the largest portion of your net position. That's your assets less your accumulated depreciation, less any debt related to those assets. So you can see there that that's approximately $40 million. And then there's various categories that are restricted for various purposes. Those are generally restricted revenues through tax levies, or in the case of maintenance of roadways, motor fuel taxes, things of that nature. So the remaining balance then is your unrestricted. And you can see there in the governmental activities, there's an unrestricted deficit of $6.693 million. A lot of that has to do with both your net pension liability and your other post-employment benefit liability. Those combined, OPEB liability was $3.1 million, and your net pension liability is about $6.5 million. So that's the reason for the deficit unrestricted position. In the business type activities, though, you do have a positive unrestricted net position of about $1.8 million, and that's your water and your sewer and electric funds. And then on page 6 and 7, this is your statement of activities. This is your essentially your income statement. I'm sorry, this is just page 6 for your government-wide. But the fifth line from the bottom there is your change in net position for each of the activities, governmental and business type. And you can see that the change in net position was about $13,000 loss for the governmental activities and about $1 million positive increase in the business type activities. You can see there's a couple lines below that. There's a change in accounting principle, and that is the effect of the other post-employment benefit liability being included in your financial statements now. So that's just kind of a quick summary of the high level of the governmental activities. Any questions on that I can answer? I'll just kind of quickly go through then the fund financial statements. Pages 7 through 10 are the governmental funds financial statements, the balance sheet, and this is, so your general fund is reported, and then there's a column called aggregate non-major. Those are all the other special revenue funds that you have included in your financials. There's a summary schedule of those in the back of the financial statements, but none of those are considered major for financial reporting purposes, so they're just aggregated together in that one column. If you look on page 9, you can see there that third line from the bottom, the change in net fund balance. And so for the general fund, there was a decline of your net position, net fund balance of about $220,000. And for all the other aggregate non-major funds, it was a decline of about $88,000. So a total of about $308,000 for your governmental activities. And then if we kind of skip over to pages 11 and 12, and then 13 and 14. 11 and 12 are the statement of net position for the electric fund and the water and the sewer fund. And so these two funds combined make up the business type activities that we just went through. So I won't review these, but it's essentially the same information. It's just broken down by fund. On page 13, this just shows the breakdown of the change in net position. It's about the fifth line from the bottom there. The change in net position for electric was a positive $601,000, and for water and sewer was a positive $423,000. 14 and 15 are some cash flow statements for the two enterprise funds, and then 16 is the statement of fiduciary net position. So this is your police pension trust fund, and this shows all of your assets and your investments, less there was a $1,500 liability there. So your net position for the police pension fund trust fund was about $7.9 million. On page 17, that is shows your additions and your subtractions from the trust fund. And you can see this year the contributions made up both employer and employee of about $713,000. The net investment income was $359,000 for a total of $1,072,000. The deductions, which include the retiree benefits and then refunds and some administrative expenses, totaled $446,000. So there was a net increase of $625,000. The remaining information in the financial statements here are notes to the financial statements, more detail on each of the different items, cash, investments, debt. I won't go through those unless you'd like me to, but there's a lot of information, a lot of the details about what we've already been through. I do want to point out a couple of things in the required supplementary information. And that is on page 61. So in the required supplementary information, we include your schedule of funding progress for your retirement plans for IMRF, page 61 and 62. For IMRF and your police pension fund. And so this is going to eventually show 10 years worth of trend information as we build this out each year. But this just shows the last 4 years for IMRF. And you can see kind of the double underline in the middle of the page, employer's net pension liability. You can see the net pension liability, the total net pension liability related to IMRF there. In 2015, that was 3.2 million, then 2.7, then 1.8, and then as of December 31st, 2018, your net pension liability was 2.7 million. The Police Pension Trust Fund, which is on page 62, has the same information, and that actually has it for the last 5 years. That's based on the fiscal year, not the calendar year. And so there you can see kind of that same line, the net pension liability related to your police pension fund. It's around $5.5 million. And then on page 65, this just shows the information that I mentioned before about the other post-employment benefits. And since this was the first year, this will be the same. It'll be 10 years worth of trend information as we move forward from here. But for fiscal year 19, you can see there is about 4.4 million is your net OPEB liability. So that's kind of a quick summary of the CAFR. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Thank you. I'll have more because with the consideration with the pension consolidation, what the impacts will be on this, but probably not right now.
Okay.
I want time to review it too. Looks good.
So I'll quickly go through these other two documents. The auditor's communication to the board and the president, the board of trustees, and management. So this is just some required communications. Page 1 is a cover letter. Page 2 just kind of discloses some of the items that were as a part of the audit process. Some of the estimates that we had to consider during our audit process, the useful lives of capital assets for depreciation purposes, an allowance for doubtful accounts, estimates relating to the pension plan and the OPEB plan. So those just show some of the things we considered relating to estimates during the audit process. No difficulties encountered, corrected and uncorrected misstatements. There were no corrected misstatements, no adjusting journal entries. We did have one small inventory adjustment that we did not make. We passed on. It was $5,300. So we've included that right after this letter. The management letter is included in here on page 6. There were no findings, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies that we noted. It was a clean audit. We do include also future accounting pronouncements, and there are a few that will probably affect the village going forward, but we list all of those there. GASB 84, it relates to fiduciary activities, and there may be some impact on the village. There's been a clarification that GASB issued in June of this year that kind of discussed the fact that 457 plans, deferred comp plans, defined contribution plans that the village may sponsor. Even if they don't make any contributions, they may have to include those in their financial statements going forward. There are some things that we believe that you may be able to do to avoid that. And so we've had kind of a preliminary discussion with Sherry about that, and we'll kind of explore that a little bit more. The other document that we have is a new document. So the state of Illinois now has the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. And so the village has to complete some information through an online portal regarding both federal and state expenditures. And we're required to essentially just issue an in relation to opinion regarding the information that was submitted by the village. And so page 2 just kind of shows a list of the federal and state expenditures that were submitted to GATA for reporting purposes. That's it for me.
Any further questions?
No, this is comprehensive. You did a great job putting this together. I have not had a chance to read any of it, so I'm going to go through it.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 2, an ordinance adopting the employee manual for the Village of Chatham.
Hey, Trustee Mound,
Yes.
before you move on, the auditor made reference to the content of the annual report several times. It's going over and above the general requirements of reporting. And I think that really describes Sherry's efforts in putting this comprehensive report together and working through the audit. So I would like to commend Sherry and Kayla now this year for their efforts in putting this together. It's greatly appreciated, and their efforts are not unnoticed at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Number 2, an ordinance adopting the employee manual for the Village of Chatham, revised this October. Is there a motion on the table to put this on the table?
Trustee Gerger, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can. Okay. Well, I know we were talking about the matrix report and how that may play into the employee manual. So I didn't know if we would want to wait till we got that report to make a final vote on the employee manual so we could review that report from matrix.
What is it from the matrix report that you think may play a part, just to help me understand?
Matrix, so they went through and looked at all the operations of the village and to review staffing and all that. And, you know, without seeing what even a draft, I'm not sure. So it's hard to answer that question without knowing how they play a role. It may not, but it may.
Pat, do you have any idea when we could see a draft of a matrix report?
I do not.
Is there anything that would hurt tabling this until we did see a draft report?
No.
You don't need it immediately, or
The procedures that we follow in there,
yeah.
we've been following for years. We just haven't officially put them in the book and done it. As the union contracts get negotiated, it's always a good time to go back and update your personnel manual. So if you hold off.
Trustee Scherschel, to your point, I don't anticipate anything in that matrix report that would impact the employee manual. If it should arise, the opportunity to update that and go through it, make sure our unions all agree with any proposed changes would still be available afterwards.
Yeah, we could update the thing again
Sure.
in 2 weeks, but
If that would be as clean for you, if it's 6 to 1, half dozen of the other.
Trustee Scherschel, would you like to make a motion to table this, or?
But I assume that you guys all looked through this and everybody was okay, because 2 weeks ago I asked and I got no comments, no questions, anything on it.
No, I don't have any issues currently.
Okay.
The only issue I have is with the ordinance, and that is that Mr. Charles not listed as a trustee, but instead it says Terry Fountain. So just need to make that adjustment, both on the cover as well as on the vote there.
Thank you.
Pay attention.
Is there a motion on the floor to,
There's no motion.
no,
That's what he's asking for.
that's what I'm saying. Is there a motion?
To table? I'll make a
To
motion
table
to
or
table
to
it. I
accept
mean,
or-
I think we should wait. I feel like, so we can,
There's a
Trustee
motion to
Gerger,
table.
let me ask, Trustee Gerger, did you have anything you wanted to add? Do you want to go ahead? Table, or you want to go ahead and accept? I'm curious your thoughts.
I thought that Matrix was going to make some recommendations on organization type stuff, and really, without knowing what's in that report, I don't think we really know if it will affect the employee manual. So, why would we want to do it twice? But I'm okay with the manual how it's written, how I read it.
that's true.
Trustee Charles made a motion to table. Is there a second? What'd you,
There was no motion to put it on the
oh,
table.
you're right. So is there a
So without a
motion?
motion to put it on the table.
Number one, is there a motion to put the ordinance on the table?
Because if we say no, then we just move on.
I'll make the motion to put it on the table since we
Oh, okay,
had the
thank you.
discussion.
We
and
had the
we've already-
discussion.
Yeah, we've already discussed it, so.
Okay, now,
I'll say.
trustee Charles, would you, okay. Now there's a motion and it's been seconded to table. Mr. Secretary.
No, we just brought it up for discussion, right? That's what the motion, we had to have a motion, we didn't have a motion to bring it up for discussion. So
Oh,
brought it
so
up
he
for
was
discussion.
seconding your motion to bring it up.
Bring it up for discussion, yeah.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
I feel like we had a discussion about.
Yeah, so
The
are
matrix.
you willing now to make a motion to table?
Table it or to approve it?
Well, I feel like we're all in agreement though that we don't need to see changes, but this matrix idea, I don't know, there was maybe something more to see, something more to read.
I think I joined this board September 11th of 2018, and we were talking about the matrix report then. So one of those things. How long do you wait?
Oh, okay, so gonna make a difference, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, I could flip a coin, honestly. I don't know that I have an opinion one way or another. If we want to go ahead and pass it as what we've seen to this point. If we got to go back and revisit anything, then we can revisit.
I think what Pat was saying was that the changes that were written into this amendment have pretty much been the standard operating procedure anyway. So we might as well adopt those, and then if we see the matrix, a month or 6 months from now, and that suggests something that may need to change, then I think at that point you got to talk to the unions and everything again about potential changes. So.
And all the changes that we have been making, new hires, new positions and stuff, we've run all that stuff and informed Matrix all the way along. And they've had no problem with any of that. Actually, I think they gave you a recommendation off of when we hired Dustin as the general foreman for the water and for the park. So as far as a personal manual, I don't really see stuff that's coming from Matrix that's going to affect it. There may be a few things, but if they are, we'll put them in the list of things that we need to change as we go along. It's a constant living document. It moves all the time. So as things come up, as jobs change, as technology changes, people are doing different tasks, taking on different leads. So
okay, well then never mind.
Your motion to approve the ordinance.
That's what we're currently on.
Got that motion.
Yep.
All right.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Secretary, would you take the roll?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes,
Trustee Morrow.
Yes.
Trustee Scherzo.
Yes.
amended.
Amended,
With
the names, the cover.
As amended, yeah. Number 3, an ordinance amending Title 3 of the Village Code establishing certain meeting procedures. Is there a motion on the floor to bring this to the table?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you to the attorney. Appreciate you putting that all together. I think it made sense to do those procedures without doing the full Robert's Rules of Order. That can be quite cumbersome, so I appreciate you putting that together. I think this has been due for us to do.
So I don't, here's my problem. It's kind of picking a fight where there isn't one. You know, I think that the board operates very well. Not that, you know, the one thing that I don't want is rules of order to be used in instances to silence any of us on the board. And so if we were to pass this, there's some very key things like the 10-minute limitation. I don't want to see a limitation on time for us to discuss anything from anyone's specific point of view or however, I do recognize, you know, in the past, the board may have not been so cordial. Not that every conversation that we've had on this board has been cordial, but there's not been I would say, there hasn't been a glaring need to specifically change the rules of order. No, we don't necessarily have any to go off of, but I think as what we have, you know, I don't know that I would support it right now the way that it reads, especially with the 10-minute time frame and that kind of per trustee. I don't agree with that.
I don't agree either because I feel like it limits free flow of discussion. I really do. I think we operate really well. I believe in the most controversial times we have done well and without time limits. And when you institute the time limits, then you break that chain of discussion. And we've got plenty of time to talk about everything. So I am not for limiting free flow of discussion, and I just don't think this is necessary.
So which items are you suggesting we change if these were the rules? Are you suggesting a particular one be?
No time limits.
So are you talking about item 5 or?
The lifting of timeline, I don't have the it's sitting right in front of me. But in reading it in general, I think I just don't see it as necessary.
I mean, no, I don't disagree with the limiting discussion. I don't think that's the intent of this. I mean, it provides a structure, and as Trustee Mann stated, we can amend that minutes or waive it before any discussion if we have a big discussion we anticipate. So I mean, I don't know where the 10 minutes, you know, that if that's just a general accepted.
That's just what's in Robert's rules. So, but these are your board rules. You guys can decide whatever you want to decide. You can completely strike number 5. You can, you know, do whatever you really want. These are your rules.
I just don't see a problem. I like it the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah. This is Brett. Does Robert's rules have constrictions on time limit?
I believe Robert's rules has a 10-minute provision.
So these constrictions are already in place on our committee of the whole, and it hasn't constricted our free flow conversations. I think it's just it's a decent idea just to have structure. Our committee of the whole already operates under stricter rules than what we're putting in place here.
Correct. So if you look at the ordinances, the committee of the whole is by our own ordinances under Robert's Rules of Order. We're just putting those a little bit of rules with the village board. You know, I don't see why we wouldn't have consistent procedures for our village board where we take final action as we would the committee of the whole.
Yeah, I'm not in favor again of these. Again, I think things run great how they are, both the committee of the whole as well as the village board, and I don't believe any change needs to be made.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add that I did add one provision to the end of these rules that essentially says that the failure to strictly adhere to the rules will not invalidate any action. So just to clarify that, and that's generally how Robert's rules operate. Somebody would need to make a order of call an issue to order and have that ruled upon, if you wanted to get into that type of technicality. But nobody under these rules would be allowed to say that, well, somebody would, whether we're talking about the time limit or something else, nobody would be able to use these rules to invalidate some type of an action taken by the board.
Is there any further discussion from the board on this?
And I just want to throw in my 2 cents worth. The only thing that I think that you guys could probably use help on is the guideline of, like, when you present an ordinance, or do I have an can someone make a motion to put this on the table? And those steps that lays out there, that if somebody wants to change something along the way, you're all looking at the same piece of paper saying, okay, we need to do this first, then we need to do this, then we need to do that. I don't think you need to restrict each other's time limits and on speech and stuff, but it probably would not hurt any board to have that structure sitting in front of them, so that when they're making a motion and the person that's running the meeting, that's not usually used to running a meeting, can look at it and say, okay, do I have a second? Or is there any discussion? You need to put it in a certain manner and then follow those rules each time. And if anything, if you could have that written down and that was in front of every person's station, I think it would help a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Like the different kind of motions and what's required?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask this of everybody. Let's do this. Can we push this back to the committee of the whole and have everybody take this home, give it some thoughtful consideration as to what we were just talking about? Because my initial reaction was, no, I don't want the 10 minutes in here. But then, I remembered, there's something about 20 minutes of debate. And so and this is kind of just my own personal failure of digging into this even deeper. But I think we might benefit from pushing this back to the committee of the whole and having a little bit deeper conversation about each one of the rules, and then coming out with something. Because I think you're probably right. It would help if we had a place a motion, a guideline. So I think if we can push this back to the committee of the whole, give ourselves another time to a little bit more time to digest it, think about it. This is a great framework to start with. I think there's just a few minor tweaks and things that I would suggest, and then go from there.
Can we talk about it now, just while we're already on it? I mean, because that was the time limits has been pointed out as one item. Item 5, as Trustee Detmers pointed out.
That's one item, but then under number 10, there's another 20 minutes of debate. So if you don't have a motion to move the previous question or limit debate may be made at any time after a substantive motion is made, if made before 20 minutes of debate, the opportunity for each board member. So, I mean, we're setting some arbitrary timeframes, which, the last statement does clear all that up, that we wouldn't be held to those things, but they're probably unnecessary.
That right there can be used to squash debate, that calling a question, so I don't really think that needs to be in there. If we're really concerned about having thoughtful debate and thoughtful ideas come forward, I don't think that 20 minutes or the calling the question needs to be in there.
Well, we have these rules with our public comment period when they come in, and we've changed those. And I know in previous meetings, Trustee Mowen, you've been chairman, you've made sure that was necessary, that we have the structure there.
That's correct.
So, I just think it's fair and appropriate that we have our own structure for how we operate as a board. And also, as Pat has pointed out, we just have motions that, we have as guideposts to know how to make certain motions and on certain issues.
And we can have that. We can have a sheet that says this kind of motion requires this kind of vote, or this motion needs this. But this board does not need time limitations of any kind.
Well, that can be looked at.
Because that, again, limits our discussion and limits
and just like
our voting powers on the issues.
And keep in mind, just like with the employee manual, we can come back and amend this at any time. So if we want to change the time.
It doesn't need to be passed as it is.
My question to you, Matt, would be, do you feel constrained in how you're talking on the committee of the whole right now?
If that rule was there, yes, I do.
But has anybody ever cut you off in the committee of the whole?
I think they've tried if they haven't.
But nobody has. You've always been able to say your piece, and these rules are in place on the committee of the whole.
And there should be no limit to our discussion as a board.
And yet we've never
I don't disagree, and us as a board,
But the rule is there, though. You just said it.
Yeah, it's
we
already,
can work to get through that time.
so
but
why,
most issues, we're not going to take 20 minutes. And if we're going to take more than 20 minutes to discuss an issue, it should probably be a special meeting with more public there anyway.
I
Wouldn't you
just
agree?
disagree with the time issues, with the time parts.
Well, again, that can be
I'm just saying,
amended, so if you'd like to change that to
It's going
something
to
else.
take 20 minutes to discuss a topic. It probably would be a pretty important topic that we would want to hold a special meeting for anyway.
Yeah, so then why can't we write that? So if you feel that way, then let's write it into the rules and bring it back to the committee of the whole and kind of talk about what your perspective is on that.
yes.
Why do we need to pass this now?
Yeah, no, let's not do that again. Let's just have a discussion. I want a real discussion.
Well, I mean, I think that's what the point of this is too, and we can do that then.
No, I don't disagree. I just, we were, I think everybody has a valid point. Right?
And I guess
So
I don't
let's get those
understand-
points on paper, added or subtracted on this ordinance.
I feel like we're adding something that doesn't have to be added, or changing something that is already in existence. That's how I feel, that it's not necessary. It's already here.
I do agree with the point that we don't have a published framework. We don't. We say we've adopted Robert's rules, but there's no way in the world we could use Robert's rules on this board. It's not made for this. So I think we could come up with a framework that we can push down to all of our committees relatively easy, because I think this is a fairly good start. It's just we need to dig in just a little bit more. That's all. That's what my point is.
Jeff, is there a way to write the time constraint? Because just from standing here and listening to you guys talk, the time constraint could act as a bully pulpit in the way that if 4 trustees wanted to squelch 2 trustees or 1 trustee, they could invoke the time thing, and then at the end, they'd turn around and vote again and saying, no, we're not going to change the rules for that. But you also don't want to have someone that decides to stand here and filibuster for an hour and a half. Is there a way to be able to come up with a common ground or something that will work for both places? Because sure, you're going to have the majority can rule the day in the final vote, but do they stop a person from at least getting his point across? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can look at other ways to potentially address that type of situation. This is one way, and the way this rule is written, if not everybody's had an opportunity to speak on an issue and hasn't been given their due time, it takes, I think, like a 2/3 vote or something like that. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to address that type of scenario. So we could look at other possibilities.
Jeff, I have a question. So what's to stop a chairman currently under the current rules or, to stop debate? Like since we don't really have any rules, it's the Wild West. So could Chairman Mao say, we're done and cut me off right now?
And that's, I think, the problem with not having any rules is there are those great questions.
So that's my issue. I mean, it hasn't happened. I'm not saying Chairman Mao, would do that, but there's nothing to protect any trustee on here if you're in the minority to have a right to speak. So, and this is kind of protecting future boards. So you're not protected as if you were in the minority on an issue to speak where you could be railroaded and pushed off and not allowed to speak currently because there are no rules. Whereas with putting this in place, this ensures you both, one, get the chance to have an initial comment and the chance to have a rebuttal. So, why would we not at least instill that to have protection for everyone, to have that ability to comment? We do that with our public now that we've been giving them 2 periods to both having a chance to speak on any agenda topic at the beginning and a chance to speak at the end on any topic. They could come up and say, we disagree with the vote you just had or whatever. But it gives that right, actually. So you're giving more rights since we don't have any rules in place for the board. It's there on the committee.
So as far as, a couple of things here. So as far as the filibuster issue, I think that's one of the powers of the minority. Being in the minority on many issues since my time on this board, and speaking in great lengths of time, I think that's a tool that I and others in the minority have had, which is good to get all our information out there. It doesn't limit us to what we can and how long we have to say it. Because, trust me, there's been big issues, and I've had a lot to say on those issues that have lasted longer than 10 minutes. I can tell you the water issue, I know I spoke longer than 10 minutes on many issues on that. The marijuana issue, I know I spoke longer than 10 minutes on that. So, again, and I think that is one of the tools that we should still have in the minority to be able to speak. No time limits, and this again limits our time, which squashes the minority on what we have to get out and just say.
Well, to that point though, Trustee Mao, you can't filibuster. So if President Kimsey, he wouldn't, or Chairman Gerger said we're moving on, there's nothing to stop them. There's no filibuster right existing in our ordinances as is.
Well, I can speak as long as I want to.
Well,
and that's my right as a trustee.
Can I make a suggestion to you guys? There's a lot of debate and a lot of varying opinion going on about this right now. I think you're valid to continue to explore this issue, but I don't think you're going to solve it tonight. Like Trustee Mann had suggested, I think take some more time, figure out, what you do want to put down into a rule if you so desire to have a set of rules. But be cautious, as I said 2 weeks ago, on doing anything that limits your debate, because the best decisions and the best conversations you guys have been on drawn out and thoughtful conversations.
Jeff, what would a board of 6, a super majority be then? So 4?
4.
Because that's what I was wondering, if to get someone to stop in the middle of a debate, if someone could call for a supermajority vote.
But they still get the right to, they get
their 10 minutes.
Now,
could you move that 10 minutes to 15 minutes and then add that clause into it? Is that like a negotiating thing that you guys could think about, that, okay, 10's too short, 15 might work, 20's too long? Let's put that in there. If somebody goes past 15 and we don't step in and stop them, you can use the supermajority to stop them.
What do you think,
Matt?
I would word it so we don't limit,
Yeah, but you've got to put something in there. You have to admit that, because say, for instance, you're in the majority and you're tired of.
And I still want to hear Paul's ideas for
20 to 25 minutes at a time.
Let's hear them all.
Okay.
We had almost a 6-hour meeting, if you recall.
Oh, I know. We've had them in the past,
And
they've all been good. But
I have no issue with having more
I'm
of
just
those.
trying to figure out what you guys might be able to agree on, instead of one side, this is what I want, and one side, this is what I want.
I think there's a very big difference between reading me a document that I received a month ago and have already read versus having a thoughtful debate about something.
Well,
Let's just call a spade a spade. It is what it is. Any further discussion about this motion?
Well, you're wrong, Trustee Detmers, but, there's not a difference when
There's not a difference between
No.
having a debate and then literally reading verbatim something from IML?
No, when others out there don't have that document,
this meeting isn't for them. This meeting is
It's
for
the
us, right?
public, and the public should know what I'm talking about.
They should.
They don't have a copy of what you have. So I should be able to discuss and read what I have for them to hear it. Because again, are you trying to stop something and stop the public from knowing what's going on and what information's out there?
You're
Is that
playing
what you're
games
trying
here.
to do?
You're playing games here, but
I mean,
whatever you need to say.
That's what this is. This is a game. These rules, these time limitations are a game. So,
Wait, having structure for the village board to operate professionally is a game?
yes.
This is not a game. This is a professional and important task that we are assigned. And we operate on trust and respect. And we have. I believe we have.
Not always.
Is there
I
any
think
further?
we need time to explain things that may be misunderstood. And we need as much time as we can to explain those things. Because we don't want to make rush decisions. We don't want to make decisions based off of misinformation. We want to make decisions in the best of the whole community. And the only way to do that is to have a full and complete and robust discussion. And this limits it. It does.
Is there any further discussion on this ordinance? Is there any motions on the floor to,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to send this back to committee of the whole.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yeah.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmer.
No.
Yes. No.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherzer.
No.
Motion carries.
4-2, right?
Yeah. Item number 4, resolution accepting a permanent drainage easement Fox Creek Estate subdivision. That is tabled till our next meeting, right, Pat?
Either that or if somebody could make a motion to move it to old business for next week.
Is there a motion on the floor to move this to old business?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second that. I do have one question on it though, Pat. So is this, so they're asking for an easement? Is this the easement on the work that they're already doing?
We're asking for the easement.
Where? Okay.
We cut a ditch all the way along our park property in Prairie Vista and draining the water that's been coming into that field and flooding the houses along Colfax there.
Mhm.
Or no, Carroll's Point.
Yes.
And
Downstream.
we have grabbed that water now and taken it to the east, and then we have to dump it into the big retention area that's there for Fox Creek. We have to cross a portion of what was known as the Bumgardner Trust. It's currently owned by the Charlin family. So we've talked to them. They said they were okay with it. We're putting together the easement so that we were able to go on there and dig that through so that we can turn around and record that. Their property is currently for sale, so they wanted to have that properly recorded so that if someone else purchased it, they would know that they bought and that there's a drainage easement that goes right across a very small corner. Joe, you can bring up the,
So, but that's the
The other
drainage
one.
ditch that takes it all the way down to Route 4 and then under, and then turns into
Yeah.
whatever creek that is.
what you see here is our park property. These are the houses that are along Carroll's Point. This is all a giant retaining area, or retention area for water. We've cut a ditch all the way along here, and we had to come onto their property that much to have this water come in here and then come this way.
Okay.
Okay. And that is right up here, so you can see there's Carroll's Point, Route 4. This is that great big area where all the trees and
Right.
brush and everything, and it's a giant retention area that takes all the water from Polecat Creek and then runs it underneath of Route 4, runs it through Piper Glen Golf Course.
Okay. So this doesn't have anything to do with the work that they're continuing to do on that beginning of that ditch in the Fox Creek expansion area.
Over on the west side.
On the other side of Ptarmigan,
No.
yeah.
No. The water that's in that eventually comes down and runs.
It runs over the
down
top of
here,
Ptarmigan.
And then comes across.
Right.
And then cuts out and goes. So this water would come into it, but this is that giant wooded area that's down
Right.
there.
Does this help with the drainage issues we've been experiencing in this?
Yeah, there's some houses right along here.
Yeah.
In Carroll's Point,
Mhm.
and the water coming from the farm fields that these folks own comes down, runs across our park property, and has been running right past the drain and going straight over and going in one gentleman's window well. And it's done it at least 3 times so far this year.
Right.
So we've got the ditch in place. Haven't had a big rain since then, but we need the final easement for that to go across there.
Okay.
Motion's been, is there any further discussion on this?
No, well, we can make a motion to move it to old business.
You made the motion, or you made the motion. You seconded it. We just need.
Mr. Secretary, will you? Okay. And,
No, just all in favor, say aye.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 5, a resolution recommending trick-or-treating hours.
It's on
I don't have that.
October the 31st, Thursday, from 4:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Those families who want to be visited by trick-or-treaters, leave your porch light on.
All in favor?
Like Motel 6?
Aye. Need a motion.
Is there a motion to?
I'll make that
approve?
motion.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any public comments on village business?
On the 31st, the VFW is talking about being open so that trick-or-treaters can come in there too, so. Just FYI.
Thank you.
All right, and the scheduled meetings, Public Properties and Recreation Commission meeting here at Municipal Hall at 6 p.m., November 11, 2019. Village Board, 6 p.m., Municipal Hall, November 12th, 2019. Committee of the Whole, 6:15, November 12th. Here, of course, at Municipal Hall. The ADA Transition Plan Committee, 6 p.m., November 19th. Chatham Fire and Police Commission meeting, November 20th at 5:30. Planning Commission, 6 o'clock, Municipal Hall, November 21st. Pat, that is still happening, right, the Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Okay.
This month's was canceled, but
Okay.
next month's is not.
Village Board, 6 p.m., Municipal Hall, November 26th. And the Utility Oversight Committee meeting, Municipal Hall, 6 p.m., December 9th. And there is no reason for closed session, correct, Jeff?
Correct.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Oh,
Aye.
yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're now adjourned.